In the first part of the video, we learned how important habit formation is to create positive changes in our lives. James Clear suggests that by making small, gradual changes to our daily routines, which he calls atomic habits, we can greatly influence our lives. He stresses the significance of being consistent and recommends concentrating on small adjustments that are easy to stick with. By slowly integrating these changes into our lives over time, we can cultivate healthier habits and mold the life we want. And now let's discuss the 4 laws of behavior change that we can all use and apply to build better habits. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the bell button so you won't miss any of our videos. Law number 1 is make it obvious. Many of our habits are so ingrained in our daily lives that we don't even notice them. Before we can change these habits, we need to become aware of them. One way to do this is by using a habit scorecard. This involves writing down all our daily behaviors from the moment we wake up until we go to bed, and then categorizing each habit as positive, negative, or neutral, based on whether it helps us become the person we want to be. Vagueness can hinder habit formation, and lack of clarity is often a reason why people fail to stick to habits. To address this, we need to be specific about our intentions. Instead of saying, "One day, I will get into shape," we should state exactly what we will do, when, and where. For example, I will jog for 30 minutes daily at 6 in the morning in the park. Habit stacking is another effective technique for starting new habits. This involves tying a desired habit to an existing one. For instance, after I brush my teeth, I will stretch for 5 minutes. Consistently practicing these stacked habits can create a chain of habits that are more likely to be sustained over time. Choosing the right trigger cue is crucial for habit formation. It should be something we do automatically without fail during our day, such as brushing our teeth. Motivation often takes the spotlight for driving our behavior, but it's not as dependable as we believe. Instead, we should concentrate on modifying our surroundings to support the habits we desire and discourage the ones we want to eliminate. This involves making cues for good habits more visible and accessible, while hiding or eliminating cues for bad habits. For example, having water bottles readily available around the house can remind us to drink more water. The environment we live and work in significantly influences our behavior. Instead of viewing our surroundings as just a collection of objects, we should see them as a network of relationships. Creating distinct zones in our living spaces for different activities can help reinforce the behaviors we wish to cultivate. Relying solely on willpower and self-control to break bad habits isn't sustainable in the long run. It's more effective to adjust our environment to remove the triggers that prompt these habits. For instance, if we're trying to reduce phone use, placing our phone in another room can reduce the temptation to constantly check it. Law number 2 is make it attractive. When we're looking forward to a reward, we're more likely to take action because the promise of something good motivates us. Dopamine, a hormone and neurotransmitter, is key in this process. It's not just about feeling good. Dopamine also affects our motivation, memory, learning, punishment, and movement. Dopamine is released not only when we experience pleasure, but also when we expect it. This anticipation drives our actions. Making our habits appealing is important because it's the expectation of a reward that gets us moving. One way to make habits more appealing is by temptation bundling, pairing a fun activity with one we need to do. This taps into the idea that more likely behaviors can reinforce less likely ones. Our behavior is also heavily influenced by the groups we're part of and the people close to us. Being around people who have the habits we want to develop can help us adopt those behaviors. Also, our cravings often come from deeper desires, like finding love or connecting with others. Understanding these basic motivations can help us change our mindset about challenging habits. Focusing on the benefits of a habit rather than its drawbacks can make it more appealing. For example, instead of dwelling on how tired exercise might make us, we can think about the health benefits and how good it makes us feel. Similarly, to break a bad habit, we can think about the negative consequences of continuing that behavior to make it less attractive. Law number 3 is make it easy. The time it takes to form a new habit isn't set in stone. It depends on how many times you repeat the behavior. As you do something repeatedly, your brain gets better at it, and specific neural pathways linked to habits get activated. So instead of thinking about habit formation in terms of time, it's more accurate to think about it in terms of how many times you do it. To make habits stick, it's all about minimizing friction. In simple terms, the easier a habit is to do, the more likely you are to keep doing it. By making good habits more convenient and removing barriers like long drives to the gym, we boost the chances of sticking with them. On the other hand, we can deter bad habits by making them harder to do. Creating an environment that supports habits can automate them and make them more manageable. For instance, laying out your workout clothes the night before can simplify your morning exercise routine. Another helpful tactic is the 2-minute rule, which is effective for overcoming procrastination and building momentum toward larger goals. By starting with a simple 2-minute version of the habit and gradually increasing its complexity, we can develop habits that endure. To make bad habits less appealing, we can introduce obstacles between ourselves and those habits. For example, unplugging the TV after each use or keeping credit cards out of reach while shopping can discourage impulsive spending. In the end, by minimizing obstacles to good habits and adding hurdles to bad habits, we can make it simpler to embrace positive behaviors and break free from harmful ones. Law number 4 is make it satisfying. The key principle of behavior change is that feelings of pleasure strengthen behaviors, telling the brain that the action is worth doing again. Immediate rewards make it more likely that we'll repeat a behavior, while immediate punishments make us less likely to do so. This principle is crucial for both creating new habits and keeping them going over time. Habits often involve a discrepancy between immediate and delayed rewards. Bad habits can feel good at the moment, but lead to negative consequences in the long run, whereas good habits might be tough at first, but bring satisfying results over time. Success in any area often demands sacrificing short-term pleasures for long-term benefits. Consistency with good habits hinges on feeling successful, even in small ways, every day. Recognizing and celebrating these little wins can enhance motivation and strengthen the habit. Using visual cues like moving paper clips or marbles can track progress and give a tangible sense of accomplishment. Maintaining a habit tracker is another straightforward yet powerful method to monitor progress and remain committed to your goals. But what can we do when our habits start to slip? Life often throws curveballs that disrupt our routines, but it's important not to let them mess up our habits. Even on tough days, just doing a slightly changed version of your habit is way better than skipping it altogether. Think of it like this: keep the habit chain unbroken, no matter what happens. Consistency is key, even when things get tricky. Having someone to hold you accountable can really help stick to good habits and avoid bad ones. When someone else is keeping an eye on you, it makes it more real if you don't stick to your plan. A habit contract, whether you just agree on it verbally or write it down, makes your commitment official and spells out what happens if you don't stick to it. Others use tools like habit scorecards to see where they could improve and made changes to their environment, routines, and thinking to help their habits stick. For instance, they made sure cues for their habits were really clear by planning ahead with something called implementation intention. They also used the 2-minute rule to break habits down into smaller, less scary steps. They set up their environment and used habit trackers to make sure they kept doing their habits and stayed motivated. Plus, they worked on their mindset, focusing on who they wanted to be and being patient with themselves instead of just focusing on the results. We hope that this will be a big help in your life. Life can be challenging, but it's always up to us how to make it worthwhile. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification button to stay updated on what's new.